Work in Progress, the Amalgamated Workers Union radio show, promoting sane solutions to our sanitation crisis.
The man who on the ground saving us from the most amount of epidemic that we could witness in our country. We treat him with scorn. He has no value.
Work in Progress, educating, enlightening, and resolving. Wednesdays at our new time, 2:30 p.m. on I-95.5 FM.
Work. Everybody must work. Work hard. 'Cause if you're not working, you gotta be loafing. And if you're not loafing, then you gotta be joking. You must work. And don't be a jerk. Everybody must work. Work hard. Hanging out on street corners when you should be at school.
Well, it's gonna be special today.
That will make you a rich man. That will make you a fool. Everybody must work.
Yes, it's gonna be kind of special today. So with me in studio, members of the Amalgamated Workers Union. And today they have a special 1 hour program. It's not a half an hour program again, it's 1 hour. So good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good
and
afternoon.
Lady. Sorry.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Okay, well.
All right, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Radio Land.
Yeah, so
Good
catch
afternoon.
your breath. Because
I'm trying to catch my breath because we're running a little late today.
Yeah.
So good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to yet another edition of Work in Progress. And today we are particularly highlighting some issues with that pertains to, we have an article here about the multi-million-dollar overtime, and the discussion this evening is going to be on that overtime, primarily to discuss all that is being implemented and all that is being pushed out there. So today we have our general, or PG, or President General, Michael Prentice, and we have Chief Labor Relations Officer Janicia Rogers, and we are Amalgamated Workers Union that hosts this Work in Progress. So good evening again, and we want to delve right into the burning issues with this overtime issue that we are having. So, PG, I know you are ready and rearing to discuss this thing in a elaborated way today. So, could you discuss with us what seems to be this burning issue and the articles that we have here today? So, I have in front of me here some information based on the relationships that you would have with some former CEOs with regards to the same issue that we are having today. And we have Mr. Bledman, right? And we have Mr. Samuel, and then we have Mr. Alexander, Mrs. Alexander. So, what was the relationship?
Miss David.
And then we have a Miss David. Sorry, we have a Miss David as well.
And Miss Seaford.
And then presently we have Miss Seaford today. So the overtime issue, could you elaborate for us, PG?
Good evening again. Good afternoon again to one and all. And it don't give me any pleasure or any joy in terms of, and it don't have me feeling any better for what we witness and have been witnessing coming out in the public domain. And we are primarily here to defend, and I'm saying it in a very strong way, defend the workers for which falls under the bargaining unit of the Port of Spain Corporation, daily paid. We are here today to go in detail as to this entire article for which is being presented to one and all at this time. And I looking at our collective agreement, and I want to bring the public up to the level where they will understand that we as a collective agreement task work in relation to the work that is carried out by the Port of Spain Corporation workers. And why some of these names were mentioned, these are former CEOs in the Port of Spain Corporation for which we would have had a lot of interaction with over the years. And the issue back then, so many years, more than 30 years, would have also raised questions in relation to the overtime issue. But I want to bring the public and get the public to understand something. Where somewhere in the 80s, maybe 1990, maybe before, where there would have been a cabinet note that would have said to the corporations they cannot increase the establishment. What does that mean? That means wherever the establishment may have been at that point in time, from then to now, the corporations are not allowed to increase the establishment, even though there may be a need for the additional workers to carry out the work that is at hand. We must not forget the fact that these workers are task workers. We have 5-hour workers which do variant chores in the Port of Spain Corporation. We have task workers for whom a lot of criticisms has been leveled against over the years, and that has to do with the fact that a task and the task work really falls primarily in the scavenging, in the weeders, the cleaners, the drain cleaners, the underground sweepers, the work, all workers engaged in backfilling and so on, backwalling and so on, and most of all the garbage collection. We have to be realistic here. A task, and it even have in section 17-14.2, the parties agree to appoint a joint committee to undertake the review of the existing task work agreement and systems and to make appropriate recommendation having regard to changing circumstances. I saying that today because this collective agreement for which we are guided by have been in existence for more than 40 years. And from time to time, management and union will meet and treat with matters that they believe seem to be challenging to the organization. We have gone through this process on numerous occasions in relation to the task that is given to workers carrying out the work at hand. So that when I hear yet again, and I usually call it in recent time, the overtime boogie, because this problem and these criticism has been with us for a very long time. But I recall some years ago, someone would have said to the central government that the workers in the Port of Spain Corporation work for too much overtime. What does that mean? That simply means that the corporation is not now in a position, and I will prove to all and sundries why the corporation engaged in the wrong thing that they have engaged in over the years. The corporation, some years ago, engaged in a level of disrespect and absolute disregard to the collective agreement. Why am I saying this? The corporation engaged in hiring a parallel workforce. You know why they hire a parallel workforce? Because they wanted to have the way to do what they want in the organization, even in the face of having a collective agreement. And they created a parallel workforce which they call short-term workers. And if you read the article for which the goodly gentleman Mark Bassant would have printed or would have exposed on the national media, what we would see inside of there, references being made to why this parallel workforce was created. But in our collective agreement would have said to us, all the workers that falls under the corporation for which the corporation has a responsibility for. So that when they created this parallel workforce, what you find is that they ignore the permanent workers, they ignore the regular workers, where they would have gotten workers from to fill the gap or the void that was left or created over the years would have been a casual group of workers. They also left out the development program workers, of which we know before the court, because they took a position not to recognize these workers, but these workers are captured in our collective agreement. So that had the Port of Spain Corporation or any other corporation created a casual pool of workers, the parallel workforce that is now in existence, for which they are now claiming that they try to do that to avoid overtime, was a clear violation of the rights of our collective agreement, and it continued. I am saying to you all and sundry today, without anyone trying to discriminate or create a level of bitterness towards the workers in the Port of Spain Corporation, will take objection to it in the strongest possible way, because the worker don't make decisions that the corporation has a full responsibility for. The worker, when after completing his task, if he is asked to do another task, he has to be paid. This is enshrined in our collective agreement, so no one could deny or claim that the worker was engaging in anything that was underhanded, or by any means doing something out of the purview of the law. The workers work, earn their monies, and I will repeat it, they work and they earned it. So nothing wrong for which the worker work and earn his money. They are task workers, they are 5-hour workers, and after they complete what is given to them, then and only then overtime are paid.
Yes. So we have in the studio here, we have Chief Labor Relations Officer Janicia Rogers, and she has some questions and to elaborate on this topic at this time.
Right. So I am sure that the public is well aware of the many articles and so on that is flooding our newspapers as of Monday regarding the multi-million-dollar overtime payment for corporation workers, and somehow the daily paid workers are the ones that are the scapegoat in this. So, as our President General would have just stated, there are categories or divisions within the Port of Spain Corporation that there is a clear need for overtime. And the registered collective agreement between the Chief Personnel Officer, the Port of Spain Corporation, and the Amalgamated Workers Union, being the recognized majority union, is clear as to what is recognized as workers under the agreement. So those workers are shift workers, regular workers, casual workers, task workers, and permanent workers. So I am sure that everyone is alarmed by the $37.4 million overtime bill that is on the newspapers and on the airwaves. But perhaps, President General, we could have a discussion about what brought us to this place, right? Because I am certain that there was a time where the overtime allocation was able to cover the needs of the work that the corporation workers are faced to carry out. So there's a definite need for the corporation workers, mainly the daily paid workers, to maintain and keep our capital city. So how are we at a place now, and perhaps you could edify the public as to how we got to a place that 37.4 million is this alarming figure that the public is viewing right now?
Well, Commodore, I want to be clear in treating with respect the daily paid workers out of the transport, because this is what is clearly stated here, out of the transport and cleansing division. And if you look at it clearly, you would see where a claim is being made in respect of some $19 million we daily paid workers, and then they went on to say in 2015 the overtime bill was $13.7 million, which I'm not aware of. In 2016-17 it came down to $12.8 million, and in 2017-18 it came down to $10.8 million. And it went on to give rise to the fact that in 2015-16 overtime bill reduced to $7.1 million. 2016 to 17, it went down to 6.8. 2017 to 18, it was $5.5 million. I want John Public to recall, I want John Public to remember, on this very program, I have consistently raised the level of awareness and our displeasure as a union as regard to supervision across the length and breadth of the Port of Spain Corporation. I raise this time and time again, so this is not something new for us as a union, where we feel some level of mishandling of the way in which the corporation carry out its affairs. This union, the Amalgamated Workers Union, has raised this on this program several times, including when we could not have gotten, even today, we still has not gotten parts to do the repairs. Now, I want to put out there in the public domain, I don't know if this is a sinister move. I don't know if it have another plan behind all of this to make recommendation for the privatization of this Port of Spain Corporation. I'm saying that deliberately because it is strange that suddenly, out of the blue, a report of this magnitude could be leaked to the media, given to the media, or however it got out there. I want the public and I want others to recall that I made plea time and time again last year and year before, the conditions that our vehicles are in, the conditions for which the workers of the Transport and Cleansing Division are working under, the fact that we have no diesel, the fact that we have no chemicals for sanitizing the vehicles, the condition for which workers are not given protective gears. I raised all these issues. I went a bit further and I attended a council meeting. And who wants to challenge me with what I'm going to say this afternoon? Free to do so. I even went at a council meeting and I asked for a forensic audit of the finances, really overtime in the Transport and Cleansing Department. I worked there, I operate out of there, and I was displeased with some of the things that I saw taking place. But I want to stay on the point that I'm making. When it reached the place where a division, a department in the corporation not provided with the requisite tools and equipment and parts and so on to carry out its functions, it have a reason behind it. Over the years, we would have been able to manage in a lot of ways the overtime until someone would have said to central government, the workers are working for too much overtime. What is this too much overtime? What is the salary of a worker in the Port of Spain Corporation? The salary of a lowest worker in the Port of Spain Corporation for the work that they are doing is approximately $235. When the tasks are completed, it means they will give another task and they will receive another $235. I want someone tell me, in this the 21st century, for the work in which are carried out by the Port of Spain Corporation, if after a worker would have done his tasks, for which has been mutually agreed in Article 1714(2), if after we had have a joint committee undertaking this review of the tasks and so on for so many years, I want someone to say to me, if this is an agreed position that we have, how then could someone be saying to central government that the money that this worker would have worked for carrying out a second task that is too much for the worker? Is it because he is a garbage remover? Is it because he is sweeping drains? Is it because he is cleaning drains? Is it because of the fact that he is moving carcasses from all over the city, the capital city? Is it because he is emptying septic tanks? Is it because he is getting rid of rodents? Is it because they're spraying mosquitoes? Tell me, if someone is saying to me today and to the rest of the public, unless someone could explain this entire scandal for which is now at the doorstep of the Port of Spain Corporation, if they are saying the worker do not deserve the money that they earn. I am saying they deserve every penny for which they work for. And no one could tell me that the worker don't deserve the money for which he worked for. We have a task, we have 5-hour workers, and listen, let's go back. These collective agreements for which we have been in existence for bordering on 50 years. People, you know what people want to change today? People want to now say that the man that is moving garbage for which when he go back to his workplace, He has no change room. He don't have showers. He are not provided with gloves. He are not provided with sanitizers. They are now saying the man who goes down in the drain and has to sweep the drain and remove silt out of the drain, they want to now ask the worker to come out of the drain with all his filthy clothes and sit on the compound of these various corporation divisions and wait for X time. He was given a task, and when the task is completed, he ought to be, once it is completed, to the satisfaction of the corporation supervisory staff, he ought to be dispatched so he could go and have himself cleaned up. So someone must tell me if they are saying $235 is an abuse.
Yeah. So, Comrade PG, it has always, from as far as I could remember, been the position of this union that the place that we are at right now, it is because of the corporation's own fiscal mismanagement. Yeah. If you look at the article published, the editor is Mark Bassant in Trinidad Guardian. I quote, a senior insider at the corporation alleged that the proper protocols were not observed by the present CEO, Annette Seafort. The article goes on to say that this was an excerpt of a minute from a meeting on September 25th, 2019. So apparently what was being discussed was the same $37.4 million overtime cost. So I think what the public needs to truly understand is, how is it that a corporation that was once able to manage its affairs as it relates to overtime within the remit of the finances given to them to manage the corporation as it relates to overtime, is now at a place that these high figures, so we're moving from 5 million to 37.4 million. That is a big jump, right? And instead of the corporation engage with the union as it ought to, in terms of, because you just read for us what the collective agreement says and how we treat with the issue of overtime and scheduling and shift workers and so on, just to manage properly. How can we reasonably or logically explain the jump from a 5 million that we used to dwell with to 37.4 million?
Come on, I don't know if you recall, this union would have gone to the length and breadth trying to get other parties involved in what was happening at the Port of Spain Corporation. We ended up at Kent House, which is local government. We ended up there because this union were raising the level of awareness, saying something is wrong in the corporation and they need to be dealt with. We went to the length and breadth in terms of pointing to the fact that we are in trouble, pointing to the fact that there are changes that need to be made. You see, sometimes you get to these places, Comrade, when a lot of micromanaging is taking place and when some people want to do it themselves, when some people want to do it all, and even when they are given advice, it is ignored. And I could afford to speak about this because we are today in the very courts as a result of people completely ignoring advice given to them, suggestions made, and for us to come to the table and discuss issues that we have in front of us. We are really and truly no better off. We are not getting nowhere. We would have visitation by the minister at the transport division looking at the state of the place, and today we are no better off. It even got worse. This is why it begs the question. Recently we had a demonstration in Port of Spain, and we tried to raise the level of awareness to those in authority, even as regards to the records that we have parked up on the compound down there that are not now commissioned to carry out work to generate funding, to create finances for the corporation so that we can get the job done. How on earth could we today find ourselves in this predicament? It's simply because of the fact people don't listen. people don't take advice. Even when advice is given, it is ignored. We go to the CPO, we have problems. We come back to the corporation, we have problems. And people seem not to understand that we are in a bad place. And we oftentimes have to remember, when good people stay quiet, bad people reigns. Well, let all those who wanted to defend and who wanted to protect and defend the indefensible, let them treat with how we move from 5-point-something million to 30-something point. Let them answer. We as a union cannot answer that, but what I do know is that we would have raised and tried to raise the level of awareness of people where the corporation was heading, and it was heading in a bad place. And I prepare to defend the workers' rights to what their entitlement and to what they work for, because they work for it. In every institution in Trinidad and Tobago, we always have miscreants, and I'm not going to be here defending and saying we don't have. But I'm saying the vast majority of workers in the Port of Spain Corporation work for the money honestly. And I will go defending it because it's a fact.
Sure. So, I don't know how much of us would have listened to the story that Mark Bassant would have covered on CN3 on Monday. I think it's part 1 of 4. And he would have, in that clip, indicated that the short-term system of work was implemented to kind of cushion the cost of the overtime bill. So we know now in our discussions today that the place where the overtime is at right now is clearly because of the mismanagement of the corporation. And you would have just indicated that you would have gone as far as to meet with the ministers and so on to discuss this issue before it got to this very critical point. And that, in my view, is the definition of good industrial relations practice, in that you met with the corporation in good faith to try to come to a reasonable place as to how we would treat with the overtime issue, despite of the fact of us as a union knowing that it's based on mismanagement. Now, despite the years of the established meetings and so on, and patterns of the union engaging with the corporation, I just wanted to read this. There was an IRO between Mittal, Point Lisas, and Steelworkers Union. It is IRO number 1 of 2014. And the court would have stated that, and I quote, "We are of the view that the collective agreement reflects what the parties were able to find consensus on as a result of the bargaining process. The areas not covered by the agreement are not open to management to unilaterally alter as they see fit, more so when there's a recognized majority union." Right? And His Honor Morton Mitchell would have went on to say that to unilaterally implement new terms and conditions, like the short-term system, is worse than not bargaining in good faith, in that it amounts to not bargaining at all. Right? Not bargaining at all is effectively not recognizing the union. Recognizing the recognized majority union is an absolute duty established by Section 40 of the Industrial Relations Act, Chapter 8801. Right? So the union, in terms of what I am seeing as a clear industrial relation offense, does not see industrial offense as just being lockouts and actions that seems a big deal to the public. But actions such as what the corporation has engaged in and enforced on their own without consulting with the union is clearly, in the eyes of the industrial courts, is an industrial relations offense.
Yes, well, Comrade, you couldn't say it better. Mm-hmm. And I want to draw to your attention that when Mark Bassant said that, I asked myself the question, if the corporation were listening to anything at all, because it was clear that one of the reasons why we find ourselves in all of this is when people believe they could just run to central government and tell central government, hey, here what happened, so on, so on. And I go with the strong belief, had it been other workers who were benefiting what they were benefiting, this meager sum, over the years, people would have said nothing. And it's not that there's something wrong, you know. It is an entitlement because you work and we as a collective agreement. What they now wants to do, seek to do, is have you work flat time at varying times when the collective agreement is for double time. They now want you work flat time on public or proclaim holidays when it is double time or triple time depending on the nature of the job. There are people in this country working for hundreds of millions of dollars and no one says nothing. These workers is at the lowest end of the spectrum. And we have to consistently been fighting with the POS Corporation for them to adhere to the collective agreement. It shows all of us the reason why they create a parallel workforce. It is because of the fact there is a need for increase of the establishment. So that what they then seem to want to do is almost as though we are saying we want to create a CPEP or URP in the POS Corporation. How then do you do this? How then do you, in the face of pointing out that what you are doing is illegal and you cannot do it, you have to sit with the majority trade union and have conversations for which they have chosen not to, and we have complained about this time and time again. This is clear that there is a need for the change. Commerce, let me also add this today. In approximately 12 of the other regional corporations, POS Corporation was one of those corporations took a principal position many years ago not to privatize its sanitation responsibility. Other corporations would have done so. San Fernando remained with a very small number, and even ARIMA went that way. In recent time, ARIMA has made some changes in ARIMA in terms of purchasing a few garbage compactors and so to carry out work. But the other regional corporations today are being held at ransom, and they all know what I'm saying. It's a fact. Port of Spain remains. This is why we as our collective agreement still enshrined with us today, because we did not change or give up our rights to have sanitation workers under its ambit. Today, what we are facing with is the challenges that are now being made in respect to the workers that carry out this job and the disrespect that is shown to the workers. So people now go away with the belief these workers are working for too much money. But the people who feel, I hear some people at the high level say it's best that it's going to be a garbage man. But they're not going to come out of the air conditioning office. They're not going to 4 o'clock in the morning on the street picking up garbage. They're not going to be outside here 2 o'clock in the morning sweeping drains. They're not going to be removing animals from all over the country that are knocked down at one time or another. They're not going to be going under the underground drains and cleaning these places. But they are asking, or they believe the workers that are doing this job should be treated with contempt. And I have a serious problem as a trade unionist in the 21st century for people disrespecting people in the society for whom doing a job that is thankless. We have an ungrateful society, and I am saying that today. So, comrade, I'm watching an article in the collective agreement here, right? And it quotes, right? The principle of task work for the undermentioned workers is accepted. Cutlass men, weeders, cleaners of drains, paved and unpaved, sweepers and workers engaged in backwalling. And as far as practicable, all employees engaged in scavenging. So these are the type of workers that we have, with the corporation. Right under the sanitation section. So that these are the type of workers that you are explaining about. Yes, and I am saying that and going even further than that, because we have other workers in the public health department for which carry out a different type of work. We also have workers in the night soil unit who empty pits and tanks in the capital city for which are exposed to health hazards, for which the protective gears are not now provided. And we have been complaining about this to no avail. People just simply ignoring everything. The disease that is now at our doorstep, I'm not saying it is here. I'm not going to be reckless with like some people carrying on and say it is here. The disease that is at our doorstep, for which we run the risk of a lot of things. They're exposing all these workers for which they are not providing protective gears and so on and chemicals to sanitize all these vehicles. They're running the risk of exposing so many workers in the POS Corporation with this.
Yes, comrade. So, with the mismanagement of the POS Corporation, with the mismanagement of the POS Corporation, I know that you would have had some relationships with the former CEOs that has gone by, right? And we have some names here, and would you care to, talk about the relationship and to where we at right now with the present relationship?
Well, over the years, we have always had challenges with the corporation, really over time and how it is dealt with and so on. And we had a good relationship, we had bad relationship. What I've oftentimes said in recent time that the situation today is worse than it has ever been. And I hold no grief, no bone, no nothing for anyone. Just simply saying that is a fact and that is what it is. And until we understand that changes has to be made, it means that we will continue down this bad path. We're in a bad place. And it has to change. Something has to give. Somebody has to get it right. Somebody has to understand the workers could no longer continue under this level of disrespect for which has been created over the years. The workers could no longer continue this. It has to stop. We cannot continue with no diesel. We cannot continue with no chemicals. We cannot continue with no protective gears. We cannot continue with all the tools to carry out the work. I see on numerous occasions, the vision workers are outside there sweeping the streets early in the morning, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of them have no gloves. Some of them have no respirators. Not even a dust mask, for which is the cheapest thing in which you could provide for workers cannot function. I seeing that today. And what are the corporation telling me? They are not aware that these workers are not provided with the protective gears that they are required to be part of the work, the job, to carry out the work. All they're interested in, and I could say this over and over, once is to refer to take anything from the worker. This is what we were saddled with for many years. From the moment they say take, they take, but they don't give, they don't provide, they don't come up to scratch to where they ought to be and supervise. I have raised issues, comrade, of even CPEP encroaching in the areas managed and run by the POS Corporation. That's not bothering anybody. I have raised issue with the condition of the market, central market, which is manned by short-term workers on weekends. You tell me why in this day and age you're doing that. And then you seem not to want to accept the fact there's a need. That is what the collective agreement says, where there's a need. And if there's a need, you can't violate the collective agreement and try to pay people different to what their entitlements are. Yes, comrade. So, we're going to take some calls now, all right? And the number is 622-3937. And I repeat that, 622-3937. Yes.
Yeah, so just to go off of what Comrade PG was saying earlier, when we speak of short-term workers, I know it's not a term that any and everybody would understand what it means. But what the union sees it is as an attempt to exploit these workers from their rights that they would have under the collective agreement. So you're talking about workers who are doing the identical functions of the list of jobs that exist under the agreement, working for, in some cases, the very same salary that we would have negotiated for the workers within the establishment, yet they aren't given the same benefits.
And so we have a caller.
Yeah, pleasant afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I am calling from the Central Market. Now, I'm listening to the program. It's a PG.
Yeah, come on.
And I want the nation to hear this. We have an administrator at the Central Market and a female supervisor for mistress. Now, money was allocated. Funds was allocated to assist with the overtime in the market. We had one permanent staff coming to wash the meat market. And on Monday, the administrator and the supervisor, the female mistress, took it upon themselves to stop that project. They took it upon themselves. So I trying right now the market understaffed. We hardly have anything to work with in the market proper, and yet still and all that stem because of a petition we sign up against the both of them.
Yeah,
and just because of that, the two of them they're trying to spite workers. And we have all kind of police intimidation and all kind of thing we had to go through here in this market.
Yes, Comrade, we hear you. And this is just a classic example as to what is happening in the Port of Spain Corporation, how high-handed the operations take place in the corporation.
We have another caller.
Hello, good day.
Good day.
Good day.
Gentlemen, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was just listening to the program. I've tried my best to listen when you all are on. My concern has been pertaining to gaining employment within the corporation. I have been on contract work, I've done night work and things like that, cleaning up Port of Spain, and I've never been considered for any kind of permanent position. And I was always wondering, I've tried maybe over the past 6 or 8 years dropping applications and these sort of things. So I was always curious to know what is the normal procedure, what is the criteria that is needed to gain employment within the corporation.
Yeah, let me just explain this to you, my brother. Over the years, we have always had a casual work pool. A casual work pool for which people would have gotten, let's say, 2 days this week, 3 days next week, 4 days this time around, and so on. What this corporation did is scrap all of this. So we now don't have a casual work pool. What they do, they engage in this sidetracking by saying they're having the short-term workers. They even would have said that out of the short-term work group, they would have selected people. Well, I could tell you, beyond a shadow of a doubt, very few, if any at all, were selected from the short-term group. Right? They go back outside and hire other people. So in the case of your good self, for whom would have contributed so much and gaining employment, this is why today you are not working in the corporation.
Another caller.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
And lady, there's a lady present as well.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Now, I'm listening to your program, and two things really come to mind, or attract my attention. You talk about PPE. Now, you talk about your problems as it relates to workers being provided with PPP in accordance to the duty of care that is outlined in the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Mm-hmm. Now, I want to know what role is the Occupational Safety and Health Authority playing in all of this? Because we do have an Occupational Safety and Health Authority in this country. Although I am one who believes that they are sitting down there collecting a salary and doing nothing, have you all engaged this body to get this body to represent on your behalf or the workers' behalf, because that is their job. Their job is to go to your corporation and ensure that the act is being followed. And if it is not being followed, then they're supposed to give the corporation a specified time in order to get certain things in place. Either that or they face a court.
Well, sir, I will just respond by saying this to you. We even took the corporation to court in relation to some of these matters. And while the court would have read the right act to the corporation, as they have done with many other things. They give lip service to what they will do, and within a month or two, they goes back to their old ways. And many a times we have challenges getting the corporation to come to the table and discuss in a meaningful way the issues that is affecting the workers from carrying out their daily duties. This is
but you know that the law does give the worker the right to refuse to work in an unsafe condition. You know that?
Yes. And I would tell
that is not an industrial action.
And I would say this to you. They use care tactics. I am saying this. They use care tactics with the worker. So many a times the worker goes out there to perform his duties with no gloves, no respirators, no boots, and of course the clothing that they have suffered for the longest while.
Nah, man, you all have to put your foot down on that, and the workers have to also stand their ground. They can't bully nobody. It is the law.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. And another caller.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon to the panel.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The very first caller is my blood relative, and I am in his corner. You cannot be doing certain jobs, as a gentleman just before me said, and you're not properly equipped. You have the right to refuse to work under OSHA, and OSHA is really a sleeping giant. Not a sleeping giant, not a sleeping on themselves. Because OSHA have a big name, but they cannot function as they are really supposed to. And I think this is a very serious matter. So for me, I am in my blood relative's corner, and I am hoping that the authorities is listening for betterment in the working conditions of the corporation workers.
Well, my dear, let me just say this, and I would respond quickly.
Yes.
We have complained over and over for the last 2 years and more.
I listen to you all the time.
And we complaining, and no one is responding.
And this is sad. That's sad because
No
you all
one.
the job you all do. If one day of strike could shut down that whole city, will be in problems.
Yes,
especially with coronavirus and all these different things. That we need to have a clean environment.
Precisely, and
yes,
this is why
sir, I'm here listening.
Thank you.
Okay.
And this is why we continue to complain and point to the corporation. They cannot be treating workers in this manner, and it's a dereliction of duty on this corporation part
We have
for us to be
caller.
working in these conditions.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
What I had to say is, man, it's like fight on. I just listened to earlier. Well, it's the only union that really, for instance, like they talk about the property tax, to show, well, this is where it's lacking. And the CPO offer the public servants something. At least they should make an offer to earlier. So fight on, brother.
Thank you very much. We have raised that and all. Even pointing to the fact with the property tax, we have raised that. And why we raised it? I recall when we raised that a few weeks ago. Someone explained. They're paying enough tax. They pay into the gated community in which they live. Well, you know what was missed on that day? The person that collecting the money from those tenants owe the state. So when he was saying he is paying enough tax, his landlord or the people that he rents from or live in this gated community, they owe the state. And some of these cries that this union has been making on behalf of the workers and on behalf of the state, so that people will pay property tax in order to bring changes and improvement to all the issues that affect us, such as the virus that is at our doorstep. I hope people will learn.
Well, I really hope the OSHA personnel, any OSHA personnel is listening. And we have another caller.
Yeah, hi. Good day, gentlemen.
Good day.
Good day.
Good day, gentlemen. I come through a period, I'm an old kind of young boy. I come through a period when unions were literally labeled as recalcitrant enemy of the state. But right now in a society like the Caribbean that been through colonialization, etc., the class system is relative. So the people who were union level yesterday are now management today, and they own shares in the company and all of that. I can't understand why unions still singing as though we are the bottom of the pack. We are the pack. That's why they have everybody have a master's and everybody education, inflation. I used to single out people who merit and high above those and class and all that. How the system now, what is going on with the union that they're still talking about what they can get and what they can't. They are the management, all the stock ownership for companies and buying shares and all them things. Where the power is now.
Well, that is why, my brother, this union would have even set those in power and those in authority to offer workers benefits in companies and so on. It's not just about back pay. And we would have said this, we would have raised this some time ago, saying to all and sundry that we need to own something from what is taxpayers, what is owned by taxpayer, and not just say, you give me 50,000, 40,000, 20,000, that's it. And 5 days later, we don't have no money. We have raised this saying that there are ways to settle all the negotiations without creating a mayhem in the country. But no one listen. You know why? It is coming from a trade union. I hope people understand we need to change our behavior, change our actions, and not continue where we believe we're still in 1940 and we're not making changes.
Oh yes, so we are also we continuing because we came in a little late, so we are continuing. So we have 1 more minute, Harlan. We have 1 more minute, so we're going to continue. So this is work in progress with the Amalgamated Workers Union, and we are discussing the overtime issue and the ramifications behind all these issues that we are experiencing at this time. So we don't have any other callers, so we're going to ask the PG to, say some last words as we wrap up.
I just want to say at this point in time that to all the workers of the POS Corporation daily paid, I want to admonish you all. Not today, not tomorrow, not next week, not next month or next year. Do not make people believe what you work for, you didn't work for it. Do not make people next year. Do not make people believe what you work for, you didn't work for it. Do not make people oppress you. Do not make people ostracize you. Do not make people discriminate against you because you are doing a job for which you are entitled to what you work for. You are doing a job that we as a collective agreement that's clearly spelled out how overtime is to be treated and how overtime is to be dealt with once there is a need. So I am asking you, daily paid workers, stand your grounds firm. Do not let people believe that they will now make recommendations to push you all out of a job. And I want you to remember this. Job security, job security, job security. Thank you very much.
So until next time, work in progress at 2:30 until 3. See you next week again.
Work in Progress, the Amalgamated Workers Union radio show, promoting sane solutions to our sanitation crisis.
Right now, we're working with them to try and get better gloves for workers, protective gears, all the gears, better boots, uniform, trying to get it right.
Work in Progress, educating, enlightening, and resolving. Wednesdays at our new time, 2:30 p.m. on I-95.5 FM.